Kelly, the Educator. Why the Educator? 18 years as a student in public education, 18 years as a teacher, coach, and principal in public education, and 22 plus years as a parent of 2 girls in public education. Those are just some of the reasons why Renee Kelly, the Educator. But my goal today is to share with you the importance why we as a nation should be more passionate, should be more energetic about educating our children. So I want to increase your passion, I want to increase your why, and I want you to take action and amplify your sense of urgency. So you may ask, why do I need to hear this? If you live in a community, if you're a parent, a student, an educator, a leader, or government entities, business and industry leaders, or if you just live in a community, it is important that you hear about this because education affects all of those entities, and our goal as a nation is to bring the very best and to create a level of excellence for all. So we have an obligation as an adult to our children, to our nation, to our society, to make sure we're doing our very best to educate our children. Aristotle couldn't have said it better. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, it's a habit. Habits of excellence is what we want to instill in our children when they go through the education process. So, my work is my play and my play is my work. And I'll share a little bit about my background, why I'm passionate about education, how education has been a vehicle for me to achieve some of the things I've accomplished over my journey of life. But most importantly, at this point in my life, it's really not about me. It's about making sure we get our children where they need to be. And I want you to not just follow me, but join me on this mission, join me on this journey, because we have work to do. So let me just share with you, currently, there are 50 million students in public education today. There are 5.3 million students in private schools. There's 1.7 million students in homeschool. There are 3 million students in charter schools. We're talking about 60 million children in our nation that needs our support, our devotion, our dedication, and our commitment to ensuring that they get the very best. And don't be mistaken, all of our children are at risk. Regardless of their socioeconomic status, they are all at risk. And I can speak that from a standpoint as a teacher, an administrator, former teacher, former administrator, and a parent. Our kids are all at risk. And let me just give you an example or share a story with you so that you can see why I'm very passionate and why I'm very committed. As a teacher in a classroom, I used to do every Friday and tell my students I love them. And I think that's very critical that our kids hear those words and not just hear the words, but have meaning behind the words. So I would tell my kids every Friday, I love you and have a great weekend. But on Fridays would be open dialogue for discussions. And so the only way you can get to that level is by building relationships with your students. So we would talk about drugs, alcohol, just living as a teenager and understanding making choices and making good choices. But what we do know, we should never expect perfection from our children, but we should always expect excellence from our children. Because when we expect that, they can deliver that. So to share the story with you, I remember I had a student, and I would tell my students across the board, just a blanket statement, how do you know you're not a weekend alcoholic? I said, now if you can go the weekend without drinking, and you come back Monday and you tell me, and I used to coach basketball, Coach Kelly, I didn't go the weekend without drinking. And I would tell those students that had those issues, I said, listen, if you can't go the weekend without drinking, you may be a weekend alcoholic. you need to go get some help. And I said that with sincereness. I said that because I was very passionate, very adamant about making sure I guided my kids in the right direction, because of the choices that we make can change our entire life. So, if you couldn't go the weekend without drinking, you needed to get help because you could possibly be a weekend alcoholic. Well, to kind of finish out how the story played out. So my students, we would have these conversations every Friday, and we would talk about the pros, the cons, different things that are going on in society. And very unfortunately, as a teacher, I had to bury some of my students because of the choices. Alcohol abuse, drugs, pills, and it hurts. As a parent, it hurts. As a student, it hurted my other students. So it's very important that we be very astute and we help our kids make better choices. Another example, I had one young lady, and this is when I was an assistant principal. Her teachers would send her to my office. Miss Kelly, she's sleeping in class every day. Come to class and that's all she does is go to sleep. Here again about building relationships and telling your children that you love them. I said, and so this young lady, now we began to get a great rapport, and I would bring her to my office. We would sit, I would give her hot chocolate and bring her some snacks, and we would talk. Once we build and establish a rapport of trust, that young lady shared with me that she couldn't sleep at home at night because her friend, her mom's friend, uncle, daddy, friend of the family was physically abusing her. And she couldn't sleep. And she would sleep on the couch because it was quite a few family members in the house sharing the rooms. So she couldn't sleep. So her safe haven was the school setting that she could sleep. And so here again, as a leader, as a parent, this is what you want to do, is take control of a situation and provide alternative solutions. And so she was removed from that environment because that's not an environment you want any child, any person to go through. Knowing these things and building those relationships can change the life of a child, because see, that child never stays a child forever. Eventually they become an adult. And so those habits kind of continue on in their adulthood if they don't get help. So when I say all of our children are at risk, that is very serious. Just recently, my youngest daughter had volleyball playoffs, and we were in a town in Georgia, and we were in a college environment, and so we all stopped and we went to have pizza. And some of the friends, the parents had some friends that attended this particular college, and so the young lady joined us at the table, and we were talking and eating and having pizza and just having a wonderful time because the girls played extremely well. And she got a text message that a young man shot himself in the head, and they were airlifting him to a hospital nearby. As a parent, my heart went out to that mother, because see, she had to get that call, and to hear someone tell her that her son shot himself in the head, that's horrific. I can't even begin to fathom that as a parent, and I have 2 girls. And I wouldn't want any other parent to have to go through something that on that magnitude about their child. So our kids are faced with so many adversities, so many challenges, so many distractions. And we have to provide them with mechanisms and strategies to learn how to cope with the anxieties and pressures of life. So those are just some of the stories that I've experienced as an educator, and I'm sure we've all experienced stories, and not all of them are very hard and grim, but they're real. And it changes your whole world. It changes your perspective of how you see things. But then it gives you another enlightenment of how things can be or how things should be for our children. So as I said, we have 60 million children in our school systems. And when they leave high school, some of them go to post-secondary, some of them go into the workforce, some of them go into the military. But the ultimate outcome, why do our kids go to school, is to get employed, to get a job, or to create a job, or to become an entrepreneur. The ultimate outcome is employment. But for those students that go to college, only 1 out of 4 students complete college. 1 out of 4. For those students that go to college, 1 out of 4 need remediation classes when they're entering college. 1 out of 4 will take a remedial course before they enroll into their transitional, let's say English 1101 or Math 101. So our kids need solutions so they don't necessarily have to go through all of these adversities. Did you know there are 16.4 million kids that live in poverty? That's 1 out of 6. There's 31.4 million that live in low-income families. 16.4 million students live in poor families. We have 1.1 million students dropping out a year. That's 7,000 students a day. We have 1.3 million homeless children. Now, the definition for homeless has changed over the years. Homeless could mean living with other family members, could mean living in hotels, could mean living in shelters. It just varies. But the thing is, it's the lack of stability that our children are going through. So, when we think about education, we must look at it as a business because we're providing a service and our customers are obviously our students and parents, our community, business and industry. They're part of the services because we're all interdependent on each other and how well we provide those services. So as I mentioned earlier, those 6 entities, we all have a role in educating. Parents, students, teachers, leaders, government entities, business and industries, and communities. We all have a part that we have to be responsible for because our children are screaming for help. We have 1.3 million homeless kids that attend school every day. We have 3.5 million failing students attending schools across the nation, or I'll say this, we have 3.5 million students are being failed by the school systems, and that shouldn't happen. So I'm not here to bash education or to put it in a very bad light. But what I am here to do, I'm here to provide some solutions, some alternatives, the way we do business. Because education is a business. The budget, the discretionary funding budget for education 2016 was $70.7 billion. Yes, you heard me. $70.7 billion in discretionary funds in 2016. You can look it up. Just type United States Department of Education budget. Okay? So, to say that, Peter Drucker couldn't have said it better. We're living in an era of the 3 C's. Accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. See, our kids are not just competing with the jobs here. We have other people that's from different parts of the world that are competing for those same jobs, be it here in the U.S. or being globally, electronically serviced out. It doesn't matter. Competition is fierce.